Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Weekend Frivolity. Woohoo! And welcome back to
Hey, there we
the
are.
RationalInvestor.com.
Looks like there's actually I got a dozen people or so here in the hangout here this morning, but I do see the YouTube page is rather light, so by all means, if you have a question in the hangout lounge here, feel free to ask away. I think I posted there's the meeting link in the lounge. So all right, that's all good. Yeah, Nick, it looks like it's just you and me there over on YouTube today. Hey, you get a private session. But anyway, welcome back to the frivolity. If anything, it's kind of good for the YouTube audience that school session is out right now, because it sort of gives me a little bit more time to interact with you guys. I do actually like the fact that the school session itself, especially the level 1 course, gets us to revisit the same kind of topics over and 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 over again. We don't ever really get into too much Q&A specifically about level 2 or level 3 stuff, so by all means, level 2ers, level 3ers, if you guys are out there in the audience and have a question about something in particular that you saw with one of those kind of concepts. And actually, we'll even talk a little level 2 today with horizontal support and resistance levels off the corn. But anyway, as I usually suggest, that these weekend shows are, number one, supposed to be a forum to let the upcoming level 1ers get some additional feedback if they have questions about any of the lecture material that maybe Grim couldn't speak to. This is your opportunity. We just had our school program head on into exam land, so that's where they are right now. Under normal circumstances, I think I'd actually be on vacation right now. But this is so screwy world, man. I mean, I'm locked in my little cubicle and I can't see my son, and the only way I can visit him is through video conferencing equipment and stuff. I mean, I'm living in this. I mean, we all are. We're living in this crazy, bizarro world. Welcome to the 21st century, eh? Talk about hitting a reset button. Holy crap, what the hell is these people doing to us? So, it's a baffling new world we're heading into. I get the distinct impression this next 10, 15 years of our lives are probably all going to be around the medical services. Actually, it's interesting, like for the level 1ers, in our strategic planning part of the level 1 program, we ask everybody to sit down and just think about what the future is going to look like. We know that there's just a ton of these baby boomers all floating out there with a lot of money. Gee whiz. We've got a sickness now that almost seems to be directly targeted towards that age bracket. I don't think that this is the end of this trend. To me, sadly, I hate to say it, but this feels exactly the same as 9/11. I don't get it, but it feels very similar. So, my feeling, generally speaking, is that, and I remember after like 2001, 2002, 2003, I mean, the stock trading business just dried up. And actually, it's interesting because during recessionary markets, there are actually very specific stocks, like total pump and dump crap, on the bulletin board that do really, really well. And they're almost like these stocks are almost built to trade during recessions because they have really questionable management. But anyway, that's here nor there. Anyway, point of the matter is we are going through this massive transitionary period. It's the end of a very long cycle. The cycle is then these things never end politely. They usually end quite violently. And really, half of our job through these kind of crazy reset periods is just try and make sure to stay alive. And we have an expression on the site. And I'd just be curious. I noticed there's a B2 there. I think I see you over there on Top Step in the mornings too, eh, B2? It's kind of funny how we have sort of like our community and our students, which we really get to know really well and we interact with a lot. And then we have kind of like this sort of shadow community that sort of floats around the outside of TRI. They're almost like satellites. So I think B2 is one of our satellites. I mean, if you can get to the point where you can, you've already understand working with trading plans, you understand risk management, you understand you have to buy against the bottom end of ranges and sell against top end of ranges. If you can understand, identifying what type of risk taker you are, and then the importance of you having the patience and discipline to wait for setups, and then when those setups fail, act accordingly, blah, 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 blah. Then I love the idea of you just sort of watching and just sort of using the information if I happen to drop some levels or something that work for you. I love that. And I do see that a lot in sort of the daily brief videos. People are like, yep, nice levels, thanks for the input, etc. I love that. Really, I'll tell you one thing. This is the kind of thing, especially when you do these Hogue is routine, right on, B2. And it's so funny because now you guys all know who Hogue is, and I used to work with Hogue over at Top Step. And, I'd be so funny if he ever watches these videos, but like we have icons on the site about levels. And one of the icons when I first came and started using TradingView, because I was still working technically for Hogue at that point, was trying to describe volume profile and levels, and I saw this cartoon icon in the little pull-down menu on TradingView, and I was like, holy shit, that's Hogue! I mean, and now, B2, you know what Hogue looks like in person. Doesn't that kind of look like him? I mean, it's quite shocking. So it's adorable. And I absolutely love Hogue. Hogue is an absolute sweetheart. If you're going to have a boss in the trading world, Hogue is the type of boss to have. Because he understands how fucking tough this game is. I mean, it's not easy being a full-time trader, I can tell you that much. It is a tough life. And, there's a reason why 95% of the people in this world can't do well at trading. It's because it's not easy. Here's actually a good example. We go above value and Hogue starts getting interested shorting because we're above value. And you notice we worked our way right back to the POC, and that's where Hogue would be taking profits. So, hey, cool. Wow, where'd you get that picture? Holy shit. That's cool. Where did you get that, Shark? Is that in that picture of the Really? All you had to do is Google it? Son of a bitch. So this is Hogue like 30 years ago. There he is. So you tell me. I mean, gee whiz, that icon looks awfully similar. That's cool that you found that, Sharky. So there he is. Anyway. It's sort of an internal joke, and by all means, John, if you watch this, I speak incredibly highly of you. I love his attitude. He was the guy, him and Eddie were the guys who really taught me this whole concept of PMA. And these guys, you just saw that picture of Hogue, that's like 20, 30 years ago. I mean, these guys have been in the pits forever. And they know what a survivor looks like and what the usual arrogant son of a bitch that as soon as they get cocky, the market's just going to rip them a new a-hole. They know what that looks like. So, B2, what do you think? Is it a good idea for people who are aspiring traders just to pop in and just hear what the Hogue has to say first thing in the morning? I think, it's free content. It's just like this. I mean, it can't hurt. How can it possibly hurt? And also, too, what I like on the site is those people that are aspiring to be traders, it builds routine. And for a trader, routine is critical. You have to sort of get into the groove, right? And sort of regular things happen on a regular basis. Um, hey, there's a sales pitch if I've ever seen one. I got to get that on camera. B2 says, I listen only to Market Hogue, and you are a market veteran. All right, score. Woo! Now, with that, I've shown you recently, man, I'm really good at getting stopped out on the market, eh? Fuck. So, just because I'm a market veteran, yeah, I've been doing this a long time, still doesn't mean you can't go through periods where you're, if it almost feels like you're just fighting in a paper bag. You guys want to see just an absolute example of that, where I'm just like trading circles around myself and driving myself crazy. But, number one, don't take too much risk, right? Always live to fight another day. That convo. A little stock window here, but I think I have crude on it or something. I don't know what to do with it. Maybe it's over here. This funny little blockchain bank stock. Oh my God, it's driving me crazy. Well, I guess that was over here. Actually, I did a little bit of buying here on this ONT. It's kind of cute little name. I think the chart probably looks a lot cleaner on Binance. It's kind of a fun little name. I don't have any over there on Trek, so I just want to start building a bag. That's not a bad... just think about this. I keep looking at this chart. Doesn't it make sense to go and pick up a little bit of this down here? I think I picked up like 0.01 BTC. What the hell? What's that? That's like, a couple $100 worth? This is, to me, this is really simple stuff. So I'm not really in a big hurry, and if it has to bang around like this for the next 6 months, so be it. That's not really the end of the world. But anyway, I just, full disclosure, I happen to have it on the screen. Hopefully you can see why Nanny Nibbles kind of ideas make sense. Really nice looking divergence there too. So we'll see what happens. If crypto does well, then this thing can rock and roll. If it has to sit there and just go sideways for a while, yeah, I'll even have another leg lower. It won't kill me because I put like 0.01 BTC into this thing. So anyway, happen to have that on the screen there, so I thought I'd talk it. But check this out. Talk about a piss off. This stock. I really like the name. I wanted to get in, and gee whiz, what a surprise. The banks fucked me over. Typical. So I was finessing my way, and I was like, oh, I'm going to be really slick and grab some. And I said I was going to buy this W, and they one-ticked me here. So I just went and said, okay, well, fine, I was going to buy the W. And then they came down, they broke the lows here. And basically I had to admit that I was wrong and say, look at it, if you took this to get out. The irony of all of this, this is the worst part about this, is if we just go boopity boop and good old reload zones, you can see they actually even pulled they pulled a Brian on Brian. Assholes. Anyway, typical banks. So you can see what they did, right? Reload zone, brought it right down here, then took it off, and woohoo! So I was really pleased that some people actually said, you know what, Brian, actually, I bought it down here, and I held on to it, so thank you very much for the great pick. So congratulations to you. But it just goes to show that, sometimes you zig when you zag. Sometimes, you've heard me say it before, those who the gods wish to destroy first make drunk with power. So this one really embarrassed me here recently. But, it's a trader's life. You got to live with the sword. And if anything, I think this is a great testament that don't take it personally. Just another trade. And if we can come back down, fill in gaps down the road, I'll look to buy back in. So anyway, congratulations to anybody who actually did take that trade down here. Because, wow, they got paid nicely. Anyway, don't know where I'm heading with today's video offering. I suppose, hey, there's Stan, Dick. Way to go, man, way to go. Hell, there was one name that I picked up here in the stock market for TRI too, and I was kind of like, well, maybe if we're lucky we can get a half decent trade off just to right out of the gate here. But, live by the sword, die by the sword. I had to step in on the long side here with some bids. on this hut. And I suppose if anybody did buy in that reload zone, you could have taken a nice little profit just intraday there Friday. I'm kind of disappointed. I would have liked to have seen this thing close out strong above this clothesline. Was that actually? No, it didn't even actually double bottom there. So it actually closed at that level. But you can see somebody came in hard on the buy side here. And if anything, like I said in Friday's video, it at the very least, this rally's bought me a little bit of wiggle room here. If anything, those crypto fans, this actually is a good sign. What you're seeing out of here and here. Because what this actually tells me, because remember, stocks lead everything. So if we're starting to see money coming into these crypto names hard, that actually doesn't bode well, or it doesn't bode poorly for crypto down the road. I suppose we don't really have to have a very long session today. I get the impression that we're just sort of... I also noticed, too, and it might be a function of the market, things are pretty quiet out there. But why don't we pop on over? Actually, you know what I thought I'd do for fun, because I don't really see too many requests about school material or anything. What I thought I'd do for fun today was I just sort of pick apart the Bitcoin chart, start at like a higher time frame basis, and sort of work my way down to sort of what are we seeing in the lower time frame. So it sort of frames expectations. So I think when you look at Bitcoin from just sort of a 40,000 foot view or something along those lines, I think you see an asset that has gone through dramatic growth. There's no doubt about that. The question is, how long do cycles usually take? What part of the cycle are we in? Are there underlying fundamental drivers that can support price? All those kind of things come into the fundamental, category of analysis. What I do often find is that technical levels on something like Bitcoin often line up nicely with the fundamental levels. And you look back over time, you go, well, I guess that makes sense. We had conversations on the site extensively through this period here, where I think the general consensus was that the cost to mine a Bitcoin was about $2,500 or so, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I suppose you could argue that prior to the 2016, and I don't know whether the numbers here and here would be similar, but if you took that number in half, 2016 was that last halvening, so that would be like, 1,200 or so. So, big surprise. The market was underneath that, but the old high was 1,200. So, in a weird sort of way, I think you can almost make the argument you kind of see stair-stepping here. So, cost of production window, and prior to here was like, I guess if this was 1,000, 1,200, then here was like 600 or so. I always seem to remember people coming out in 2015 and stuff saying that their cost of production was around 300. So I do remember McAfee, he came out in this time period, I guess maybe it was in here, and said that his cost of production was around 1,000. But if that cost of production was 300 here, then this should have been 600. So I always question whether McAfee actually told the truth through this. But I suppose, looking back in hindsight, 600, 1,200, somewhere in that neighborhood, I think that's probably okay. The old adage, right? Show me a new high and I'll show you a buy. If you ever see an asset with a monthly price chart, where it actually has monthly price data, and you see a breakout 2 new all-time highs, that's stunningly bullish. Just even in the futures industry, that's this guy's world, right? That guy right there. The simple rule is, if you ever see a contract, like a March wheat or, September palladium or whatever, right? If you ever see a contract actually trade at a new contract high, that's a buy signal. So, in a weird sort of way, it was almost like a knee-jerk, okay, away we go. And what I did find interesting going back over time is we got news that the smart money came in earnest in Bitcoin on this event, which I thought that was interesting, right? So I made reference to the Rothschilds buying Bitcoins through this. Clearly, absolutely insane price appreciation. Woohoo! One thing I didn't like when I looked at this monthly chart, though, is I don't know, can you guys see that there's a problem here with the volume? Are buyers continuing to buy here? It's a little bit disturbing trend. When we look at a long-term price analysis, right? Huge enthusiasm here. A little less enthusiasm here. Even much less enthusiasm through here. So you actually have a situation where you have like almost like a bulls threatening to fall asleep. And if the bulls ever do less than whatever the low is in here, that's a bad sign for the bulls. So that's 91,000 there and 98,000. So it looks like 91,000. So thankfully you can see we haven't done the monthly candle where 91,000 trades. But if that does happen, that's not a good sign for the bulls. You know, I mean, yeah, well, I mean, you can technically say that that's a divergence. If this really was a bull, we would have preferred to see just more and more and more buying, just keep breaking it out. So that's got to be a little bit bothersome. You know, as for the bear, geez, I think you could say, yeah, it looks like right there, A1. Well, not really. Well, definitely there to there. So a candle below here would be problematic. Even one below there. So even this candle right in here, these ones right in here. This is anecdotal evidence that the bear is falling asleep. Lower highs in the bear volume, and then finally a candle below this low here. What does price do? Woohoo! So ideally, if you're a bull, you really would like to see that bear falling asleep. So you can see a bear kind of, hey, I'm still here kind of thing. Do we get that lower high and lower low scenario in the bear volume? We had this high here, 517,000. This high here, 359, but I think this is a little higher. 369, so no double top there yet. And then, of course, here, oh, Jesus, what's this? 400, what does that say? 481,000? So clearly the bear is still very, very much awake here on the sort of long-term monthly basis. And as we said, we really don't want to see the bull fall asleep here. So really, call your friends, right? We really don't want to see a candle print below this 163,000. So we're sitting here on the month right now. It's what is about halfway through April, and we've done 171,000. So the sell signal isn't going to come in this month. What I am worried about, of course, is following the halvening. Is there really any fundamental reason to own any of this stuff? So that's what I'm a little bit worried about. Also, too, you know, guys, let's call a spade a spade. If we had, you know, we had McAfee come out and say, well, you know, $1,000, mine my coins. I don't know whether that's accurate or not, but interesting how down here we had talk, 2,500 was the average cost to mine Bitcoin. Well, that would sort of validate Mr. McAfee. I still think that price is twice what it is, but anyway, it is what it is. So that simply means, and you know, that we have a halvening event coming up here. I mean, it's coming, right? We might as well put a big old line in the sand here. Bang. that means this number should be like twice, right? So 2,500, 5,000. So believe it or not, if I was going to be talking, if somebody came to me in the public and just simply said, Brian, I want to hell with your damn charts. Your charts are pointless to me. I want to buy value. I'm not believing the unicorn story in the stock market anymore. I've lost faith in the U.S. Treasury. I want to buy value. I would just simply say to them that it seems to me if you can buy Bitcoins below $5,000 a coin following this May event, you will be buying value. That doesn't necessarily mean price has to stay above that. We often see markets can remain illogical far longer than anyone can remain solvent, but on balance. And really we have a few years of data to work with. Somewhere between this 2,500 now, which would be my old 300 number, and 5,000, which would be Mr. McAfee and then Mr. Tony's analysis. Anywhere down in this area, I think, is value. Clearly this is not a bull market. There's no bull market going on anywhere in the world. It's just really a question of how are we going through the distribution top, or is this and the distribution top could have two different resolutions. We either go sideways on a lot of assets like the S&P 500 and stuff and just consolidate sideways, and everybody look at the stock market from about 1966 through about 1980. That could definitely be a scenario where we're just stuck in a trading range. Or we're crapping out in earnest. The good part about buying into commodities where you know that there is value levels, i.e. cost of production, at least you have some assurance that your money is actually buying some sort of value. What is the value of money? And this is where the whole proof of work concept is so hugely significant in cryptocurrencies, because there is value in that work. I think Alex Sturck said it the best. Go watch his old block talk. What the hell's the name of it? Anybody got their link? We'll throw it up on the YouTube page, right? Go watch all those interviews he used to do with various blockchain people. And his, big beef with the community was a lot of people were simply pre-mining these coins, i.e., there's no work involved. It's already been pre-mined. And of course, you had to pick that one. Was that Sharktoshi? Yeah, you knew that was coming. So why is Brian laughing right now? Because probably the absolute best anecdote of the crypto bull market and the absolute fraud of a lot of the shitcoin marketplace was a interview that Alex Sturck did, and I don't want to get into copyright crap and stuff like that. I mean, I don't even know where Alex is these days. I hope he's doing fine. But he did an interview with these people that were going to float a cryptocurrency for the farmers. And of course, Alex Alex comes from a farming background, and he took quite exception to the fact that he could clearly see that this gentleman was going to pre-mine the shit out of the coin, shill it to the farmers at an inflated price, and then just dump all his pre-mined coins on them. And actually, it turns out that this later on, a few years down the road, this gentleman actually was charged with some. I don't know whether they were misdemeanors or felonies or what the outcome of it was, but he actually was brought to court eventually. So it's interesting how even in this space, these characters seem to believe that as long as they put this funny little mask on their face, that they were going to be completely immune. And that's just silly. And, it spoke very much to the immaturity of this space at the time. But, oh well, it is what it is. Caveat emptor. it's a bit tragic, of course, that so many in the public lost so much money. Tried to teach this school program to slow people down through all this, little old ladies, nanny nibbles, that kind of stuff. But hope they got the message. But we'll see how it goes. Only time will tell. And actually, we were even thinking about that on the site as kind of a fun project for us to consider making a list of like 100 ICOs from the 2015 to 2017 bull run. What did their white papers say they were going to do, and what's actually happened? Wouldn't that be kind of a fun report? So the top 100 names. Anyway, we have a gentleman, an OG on the site, absolutely fantastic person, Colin, who is very, very into crypto trading. He was actually an analyst at another crypto firm during that heyday there. And we're kicking around the idea of creating a nice little sort of kind of like a who's who in the ICO world and what happened to them and what do their charts say now, if they even made it through all the culling. So anyway, maybe leave a comment as in the comments section as to whether you might be interested in a report like that. And also too, considering that a lot of site people right now are in the you're part of the broader economy. You see what's happening, so people are trying to think about different ways for people to create value and let's call it supplement their income. So I'd be curious as to whether there would be demand in the marketplace for a product like that. So and maybe also too, because I know we have some people that are very active in posting comments. Give me like how much do you think you'd be willing to pay for a report of those top 100 names and like a full quant analysis, TAFA quants, and a breakdown of their blockchain metrics? Would the market find any value in something like that? I'd be curious. Anyway, food for thought. So back to our conversation. As I said, I always like to look at an asset as long as it has the data. And the interesting thing is you might even argue that if it doesn't have monthly data, well, then that actually might be an opportunity for you to go, well, that this thing could explore levels that might just be absolutely ridiculous during the time as it builds out those weekly and monthly price charts. Once an asset has monthly levels to work with, I think we can start actually drawing what we might consider sort of like institutional levels. And really our job here as technicians is not to predict where the market's going to go. All we really want to do is try to identify levels at which some big fat cat, some higher up, has said, no, you stop going down, you go up now. And then, of course, if we can tie in fundamental, in the case of a POW coin, cost of production kind of idea, well, then we can actually start seeing the smart money in action. So like I said just there a few minutes ago, I think we have a pretty powerful point where we know some pretty deep pocket smart money people came into the space, and we knew that at this point, Mr. McAfee came out publicly and said, my cost to produce a Bitcoin is $1,000. I still think it's a bit inflated, but I do like the idea that this was a pretty key level. As we work our way higher here, we can always think about look left levels. And so if we're coming down the other side, where are we likely to find some support? So this little tail here, somebody, this opened up here. So then remember, this is a monthly chart. It opened up, it went down, and somebody went no, and turned it back up. So it really shouldn't surprise us that when they dumped the market over here, it found some buying support there. And it slowly goes through the process of just working its way. And, sometimes it's kind of handy to look at a monthly chart and just sort of see the forest through the trees, sort of big picture. Didn't have it on here, but I suppose we could. If I just simply do reload zones off of the bigger range, I think we should all see that if this is still a bull, and I don't see any reason. The interesting thing about Bitcoin is I don't really hear anybody dogging Bitcoin. Do hear a lot of, still a lot of talk about, the nefarious activities of the ICO market and all that. I do hear a lot of talk about concerns about centralized exchanges and trying to, decentralize this as much as possible. I don't really hear anybody actually negatively talking about Bitcoin, which I find fascinating. I do believe that the higher ups actually have accepted Bitcoin as some sort of market proxy. And I think there's enough money now in this space that it's one of these things that it's institutionalized now. I don't see Bitcoin going away. If anything, wait to hear the kind of talk about it going away. We need to hear the politicians ramping up negative sentiment towards the space. I don't hear any of that at all now. The one area that I hear sort of negativity, like I said, is maybe some of these monopolistic, oligopolistic characters within the crypto space maybe have a little too much power. But interesting thing is I think the sentiment within the space is to move towards decentralized exchanges, and my hunch is that probably gets solved over time. It's just we just don't. The technology isn't there yet. But anyway, that's here nor there. The point of the matter here is I don't hear any talk about Bitcoin going anywhere. Now that doesn't mean that price of Bitcoins can't zoom around a lot. It doesn't mean that Bitcoin can't sit underneath sort of what our consensus cost of production is and just to wash out all the weak players. And you actually find that some of the major players are actually running their mining operations at losses. I do think that there's one very simple tell that the bottom's in the... that it is actually in the best interests of the industry for price to start getting its ass higher. There's one tell, and that's the great part about this space, guys, is that, like if you were in the gold mining business, there might be a gold mining company like Barrick or Newmont that says, you know what, we don't have a problem mining at a loss for the next 5 years. We've got all these cash reserves. Our stock price ramped up. We, listed a whole shitload of shares at the top of the market, so we're cash rich. We're just going to sit and just put everybody out of production. And there's not a damn thing anybody else can do about it. But they could very easily take 51% market share. They might take 60, might take 70, might become monopoly. Not a hell of a lot you can do about it. And the irony about monopolies, and you kind of see this with Google and Amazon and all that shit, is that the politicians, and remember Microsoft 10, 15 years ago, great example. I mean, it takes forever for the politicians to actually get around to actually doing something. And what you find is that they eventually look to try and bust the monopoly like years down the road. So the good part about Bitcoin, and I can't comment on POS coins. I think to a certain degree, POS coins, it's almost like a leap of faith. But the good part, and if anything, Steam was a great example of that recently, I think. But the good part about Bitcoin is, we get anywhere near that sort of 51% attack kind of talk. It's in Bitcoin's best interest to get the fuck out of there. And what I often see is that the whales, because keep in mind, there's tons of whales in Bitcoin that are sitting on like 100,000 coins, 50,000 coins, 10,000 coins coming out their butts. Like, everybody just go watch a video of Da Vinci. He used to be on this site, he'd go, I just found this old PC. It turns out there's 500 Bitcoin sitting on it. I totally forgot about it. It's like, So, at some point, guys like Da Vinci are going to be like, okay, hey, you know what? Number one, gee whiz, the price is awfully cheap. And then number two, it's in my best interest to keep this Bitcoin story going. And every time I've seen, 51% attack, all of a sudden, within a couple of weeks, the market turns and starts heading back higher. And I don't think we're at that level right now, folks. I'm sorry. I just don't see it. I don't hear any talk about that. And according to our metric, you could argue Bitcoin has, in my opinion, right now, Bitcoin easily has about $2,000 worth of price risk in it. Easily. So just be aware of that, okay? And when you look at this monthly price chart, really ironically enough, from a higher time frame, monthly perspective, I want to be thinking about selling on rallies against these highs, and I want to be buying against these lows. And ideally, of course, we want to take W's. If we think about harmonics, remember this is off a monthly price chart, the market is pointing down towards this $3,000 level. I mean, it just is. And then, the good part about it for people like Rothschild, right, is that they've got a ton of cushion in their investment. Did they sell some on the way up here and take some profits and generate a free position? You know they did. So the point of the matter here, though, is not only did the Rothschilds probably buy, but they probably got a whole bunch of their friends and cronies to buy. So long and short of it here is they do have a vested interest to defend these levels. I think so. That's the way that I look at it. They don't want going down the road for anybody to go, you're long from there and it's way down here? Pfft, what are you, an idiot? Rothschild, you losers. Right? You're never going to hear that. I mean, come on, right? So that's the monthly image right now. Very interested in really AB equals CDs down against these lows. I do understand that we have let's try and say that 10 times fast. We do have reload zones. I'm not quite sure. I guess this, Anyway, we do have reload zone within reload zone. That's an attractive area. I mean, ironically enough, the relative proximity to the new cost of production, you're going to buy it at maybe a 30-40% premium. That isn't terrible. It's not great either, but it's not terrible. So really, I don't have a problem, and I say this repeatedly to you guys. I really don't have a problem with dollar cost averagers, nanny nibblers, people coming in saying, you know what, screw the price chart. I just want to, is this a half decent place to just dollar cost average and accumulate? I really don't have a problem anywhere in this green box. My hunch is, just for whatever it's worth, once we get on the other side of the halvening, somebody over there is making a reference to YouTube. What? That didn't make any sense. Somebody over there on YouTube is making reference to the stock market. And I believe that to a high degree, Bitcoin and what it represents is a risk asset. Now, keep in mind, all commodities in the markets will be risk assets. Ideally, of course, the great part about commodity industry is you can sort of figure out what quote-unquote value is, where supply meets demand. What does it cost to get that supply? Cost of production, right? Whereas on something like an equity asset, equities are purely earnings engines. And if there ain't no earnings, uh-oh. And furthermore, what's even worse about what I've seen happen in our capital markets, and shame on you, 1%. Keep in mind, I've been at this game for 30 years. I've rubbed nose. I showed you a picture. John Hoagland, he has his pit in the S&P 500 was right between the Dow Jones Industrial Average pit and the S&P 500 pit on the floor of the CME Futures Exchange. You can't get any more fucking centered in the center of the universe of capitalism than that. The guy literally stood. Dow Jones Industrial Average pit right here, S&P 500 pit right here. What am I going to trade? I mean, these guys were literally the center of the fucking universe. So, I mean, I've played the game with everyone, all of these people. And I have to say, I see your games, 1%. I hope these videos last, and we look back 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, it is blatantly obvious the games that the 1% are playing. Absolutely blatantly obvious. And the sad part about it is if you don't know or you don't realize what the 1% did, Go back and watch all my rants about the options expiration into January leaps. I mean, it was absolutely criminal the way Wall Street basically sold the public just so much fucking stock up top. And then, gee whiz, what a coincidence, a month or two later, down goes everything. I mean, it's just shocking how cliche this was. So, anyway, point I'm trying to make here is when I analyze the stock market, I get a little bit screwy in that I'm a big fan of celestial events in the marketplace, dictating how we silly little humans behave on this planet. And this is a really nasty year in particular. This is, for whatever it's worth, and anybody ever watched this, right? This year, 2020, if you've never heard it before, it has, I think it's 5 different key celestial events all happening within the same year, which statistically, they go back and run the models, and literally this is like a once in a lifetime event. You're never going to see this again in your lifetime. And, I think the next time even one of these similar events happens, which is only like 3 of them, is something like out in 2700 or something. So the irony of it all is nobody is ever going to, the next time one of these things happens, like one of the times it happened in the past was like 1300. Does anybody have any buddies that were alive in 1300 to tell you what happened in society? I mean, the next time this happens, nobody's going to remember any of us. So this is, it's a freak event, but it's so incredibly powerful that in my humble opinion, if you really are a student of the market and you want to sort of try to put everything into context, you got to respect this shit, because, it was just absolutely stunning to watch the way the world just shit their pants into that event. And interesting, too, I've seen this happen before, is that what ends up happening is, and think of it as sort of, buy the rumor, sell the news. In a weird sort of way, here is the pivot. It becomes a sell the rumor and then buy the news. And by the time the actual event happens, everything's all priced into it. So I have no idea what the exact path of the market is. Does anybody? Seriously. But I definitely know we have another big pivot event that comes up at the end of June. And the irony of it all this is very normal for seasonality anyway. Stock markets, usually the cliche goes sell in May and walk away, and we usually hit a seasonal trough the last week of June, first week of July, through the July 4th holiday weekend. And then the next pivot, and this is what has me really worried about this year, is actually out in November. What I'm really worried about, of course, is that our brethren down in the States, keep in mind I'm up here in Canada, but our brethren down in the States, they have a big U.S. executive branch election and also congressional elections event here. Considering that a lot of this dump was justified because of the coronavirus sickness, and the fact that we all know that flu viruses sort of come in waves, I'm very concerned that, and the irony of it all is it may not be quote unquote the end of the world, just like this wasn't the end of the world. It's just prices just went down. And, somebody put out a tweet, which I thought was I saw it and I went, son of a bitch. But it was actually interesting. That the market actually has stopped going down when people actually start saying that they will sacrifice their lives for this. And some guy, and I don't know who it was, but, some one of these sort of, what's the word? Slight sarcasm kind of thing. I'm not quite sure what the right word is. Kind of puts out a note, taking a screen capture of this politician or whoever it is saying they're willing to die to save their country. And they put out a tweet saying, all right, the devils or whatever have been satisfied. Weekend bottom. And sure enough, the fucking market just literally bottomed and went straight up from that event. And that freaked me out when I saw that, because I have seen that shit before. I remember one time the market was tipping over, and we were in bear and things were rolling over. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, some guy shot a politician in the UK, and the poor politician, I don't know, I think she died from it, and literally the market pivoted right on that event. Couldn't explain anything else, but it was almost like the trading gods were satisfied somebody was sacrificed. I don't know, call me crazy. But I was quite shocked at how people were like, I'm willing to die for this, and people are dying, it's his death. And then all of a sudden the capitalists went, okay, enough is enough, and they turned it around. So, maybe through these event windows, look for those clues. When you see absolute despair and absolute panic, try and build it into your trading plan if you can. And hell, you might be buying stocks like SI as Brian's getting stopped out on shaky setups and kicking ass right now. But I did pick up some of that hut, and it's rallying, so I feel a little bit better. So the point of the matter here is I actually expect, and I was a little bit surprised. I actually thought the market was going to rally into this June window, but we are rallying way too far, way too fast here. And you notice we're coming up into levels where the institutional boys are going to be like, all right, well, this is business as usual. Time to start selling reload zones and gap fills. And the irony of it all is if somebody was like, okay, well, if we get, I bought here, I didn't exit here like I was supposed to, but if we do get back to this level, I'll let them have it. So, gee whiz, we're right back to these levels now. My hunch is this big old honking gap up top here still needs to be filled in. And you can see, and I said this in Friday's videos, you can see the gaps that they're starting to leave, especially today's action. Wow, huge gap. And that was Friday, right? So I'm kind of thinking like yawning, rolling top. We just got through the April options expiry. I wouldn't be surprised if we looked at the May data. There's probably a good chunk of incentive to keep the market up into that. Once we get on the other side of that, look out. Now, the issue that I have with Bitcoin, where am I going with all this, is I notice that Bitcoin seems to be a little bit ahead of that schedule. I've got a chart on here. Where is it? Oh, I went the other direction. I guess it's this one. So, notice there's that April 5th kind of pivot low that we saw, and the stock market actually sort of pivoted somewhere in here. And you notice Bitcoin actually bottomed well ahead of that event. So I'm wondering, here's that next one, the end of June. And I'm just wondering whether there needs to be that spike down about, let's call it maybe 3 weeks ahead of the event to actually mark our bottom. So that's sort of what I'm thinking about here. But in essence, that's that same sort of thinking, that April celestial event, the June-July celestial event. And I'm looking for our ultimate low somewhere down in here. And you guys have heard me talk about this. I don't know whether I want to go here just yet. Somebody was asking the correlation with the stock market and with Bitcoin. So that's sort of that kind of thinking. I don't know whether somebody asked about that. Who was that? Brian, why are we seeing Bitcoin correlated with the S&P? Does that mean that all TA still works? Well, okay, so that was a question by Mr. Palacios123. I don't know whether you're still here or not, but the question I guess I'd have to ask you is, what is the purpose of TA? I get the impression from a lot of people who look at technical analysis as it's sort of a guide to predict the future. And I think that actually that's dangerous. Because the market's going to, they don't call it random walk for nothing. To a certain degree, the market is highly random. So why would we use technical analysis? And ironically enough, the only thing that technical analysis really should do is identify higher probability locations and indicator confirmations and price structure confirmations, those signals that we're going to see the likelihood of something that we anticipate happening over it not happening. That's really the only purpose for technical analysis. It's kind of like, and I did up this chart here for you earlier. If I really wanted to try and pick a level to take a shot at, I'm obviously a big fan of levels. I really like levels, and it's just my teaching. Some people are like, nope, I always start with RSI, or I always start with a stochastic, or I always start with a volume flow and money flow. Okay, well, that's fine. Me personally, I'm a levels kind of guy. I love levels. And I think that that's really the best place to start for my students, people who want to learn from me, is, what's our, how many reasons should we add to take a trade? All you 80 people out there on YouTube, great to see we didn't get a downvote today. Come on, what can I say to generate a downvote? Come on, somebody downvote me. What should we say? Craig Wright is Satoshi. Oh, that should generate some downvotes. Downvote! Hey, there you go. Nailed it. Way to go. All right. Okay, back to the fun. Hey, look at that. There we go. Here come the downvotes. Right on. All right. Now, for whatever it's worth, for the record, I do not believe that Satoshi Nakamoto is Dr. Craig Wright. And frankly speaking, I don't know whether Dr. Craig Wright should even be called doctorate, because I don't think a doctorate in theology gives you the right to use the term doctor. But that's just me. All right. So back to our conversation. Oh, and by the way, on the TRI site, I do see this quite a bit too. I had a private message from a gentleman who wanted to try and help me spiritually a week or two ago, and I appreciate the sentiment. The battles that I have with Liam and PMA and all that in my life. But this gentleman also too said, "Oh, by the way, I'm a fan of BCH," and I went, "Okay, well, I won't hold that against you." Then this week, I had another gentleman come on the site and say, well, Brian, I mean, I don't mean to be politically incorrect, but I actually kind of like BCH, and here are sort of the reasons why. I said, hey, I'm asset agnostic. I just want to make money. I get the impression that Roger Ver has made peace with the crypto universe, whereas, of course, BSV would be the good doctor's coin, and I don't know whether I can endorse him or not. But and maybe this would be actually interesting. I mean, do you guys like Roger Ver? Buy Bitcoin. There you go. Yeah. I mean, do you guys like Roger Ver? Is he back in the crypto universe's good books? Because as I said, I actually do hear a few people on the site, and we have one site gentleman who said, Brian, I'm going to put together a really slick presentation. I'd like to come on the site through a daily brief and just show the community my findings here. At the end of the day, and this is the great part about being free, this is why it's so dangerous, Communist China, what they're doing with free speech. At the end of the day, what I really want is I want an open dialogue, an open forum for people to come on TRI, PMA for the win, all that kind of stuff, and just talk freely. And not be worried about somebody jumping on them because maybe they're not being politically correct. I mean, obviously, in this politically correct world, we have to be careful with what we say. And hell, I make mistakes on that line all the time. But I certainly don't have, I like people who are good and who are nice. That's to me that's important. But I definitely know there's a lot of capitalists out there that are not good and they're not nice. Does that mean that I totally shun their asset? if I see a really, really good trading opportunity, I might like hold my nose. But there are some people where I just drop the line. Like that cabbage coin guy, couldn't touch that. I couldn't even look at it. Right? So, all right. How the hell did I get off on this tangent? So isn't that interesting? So not really too many comments. BCH still got hacked. The universality of contempt for BSV is a contrarian indicator. That's good. Daniel J says, as countries are printing more and more money, isn't that reason enough for all assets to rise in price? Isn't that inflation? Yes, and I think Daniel J asked that question. I think to all intents and purposes, if these central banks had not gone and printed more, I would actually have a very difficult time in justifying Bitcoin's price rise. But ironically enough, I think you can actually directly correlate the halvening with almost the pace of dilution of the U.S. monetary base. So in a weird sort of way, and I think this was the whole purpose of Satoshi's vision, whoever it was, CIA, Solar Misano over there on YouTube thinks that Satoshi is Rockefeller. Okay. So be it. And does it really make any difference what any of us think? I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of irrelevant. But anyway, what am I trying to say here? And I do not want to say that. Joshua posted a comment here that's going to get me into real trouble if I say that. You really want those downvotes, don't you? 4 downvotes! Come on, more downvotes! More downvotes! And I sure hope you get some value out of this. I mean, I don't think I've said enough offensive material to generate 4 downvotes. Anyway. Remember, this is edutainment. Hopefully I'm entertaining you and you're getting a chuckle out of all this. Anyway. So, here is our monthly price chart. Wicks and tails like to be eaten, I think, over the short term. This is our sort of top of the range in the short term. This is our bottom end of the range. And that's about 10,500 there on the upside. And that's about 3,800 on the downside. And I could easily see price easily swing in either of these levels. Considering the tone of the world right now, I think we are on an uptick. And interestingly enough, if we drill down to the weekly chart, so then we're starting to think about sort of 52-week ranges here. What I did find interesting about this is if we zoom out now, so we have this range, which they brought price down into. We have this range, which we've been talking about a lot in our sort of recent daily brief videos and stuff. Off the lower time frames, this is an important level. It's also a nice 3 drives pattern. Takes us up into this sort of 7,900. But at the same time, too, we could very easily wash this high up here if we get ahead of steam. Because this is a V-top. This is a V-bottom. V-tops, V-bottoms are unsustainable. This was a V-top up here, and they washed that high. This was a W-bottom, so to be honest with you, I thought, if this really was a bull, we would have really liked to have seen those lows hold and us turn back up. The fact that we did break these lows so violently means to me that, well, gee whiz, that's a bigger M. Remember that monthly chart we looked at. So at the very best, at the absolute very best, right, we can go, okay, well, maybe we can W out, and start to put in a base, kind of like what you saw through there, right? Maybe, because this price swing is so big, you can see how this price swing wasn't that much, so it set up a relatively small range in here. The fact that this range is so big means that whatever this W is going to look like, it's probably going to be pretty damn big. And even off of like a weekly basis, now you actually see that we're actually coming up into areas where, if I was a trader, I might actually think about starting to short. If I do a just simple trend line, just plain connect the dots, boobity boo, you can see how that basically that red box there is starting to look like a pretty darn good looking shorting window. If this is the top here, I don't know whether we're there yet or not. My hunch is no, but so what? That's just Brian's opinion. If this is our top here and we start crapping out, then where do I have to start thinking about, price moving to in the short term? Good old reload zones are going to be off of that low there. What I'm worried about, remember that A, B, C, D off that monthly chart and testing that key low, and then, heaven forbid we have to have it all the way down there. I don't think we go back there, but that's just me. I do really like the fact that 13% range extension off of here takes us into that AB equals CD. So 113 is often a harmonic level that a lot of traders pay attention to. I also do like the idea that, if they, think of this W way back here as, big na levels. I think we should be able to do that right there. Right there. I mean, there's a bunch of them in there, right? But this also, too, does represent a liquidity pool. So, I could understand kind of almost the same thing as here. Is Rockefeller still long here and he didn't sell any on the way up here? Come on. Obviously, they sold quite a bit and made some money. And probably generated a risk-free trade, that kind of thing. So anybody who bought this W here, did they make any money? I sure hope so. Heaven forbid they didn't. That would be awful. So maybe that it's so far away and then the market's gone and topped out. That might mean that this liquidity pool now does become a bit vulnerable. And, if I'm a bear and I'm driving this market down, I can look back, look left, na levels, and I know that there's going to be a whole bunch of stop loss orders just below that low and just below that low. They bought, right, over here, so that means that this will be an order to sell right there. If I can draw clearly. So sell. Does it make sense that the fat cats are going to drive the price down? I'm going to sell. Fat cats sell up here. Ideally, I think they want to sell here. Sell. And then we come into these levels. Sell. Then the retail stop loss orders, they get tripped up. In comes the retail stop loss, right? Stop, sell. And these guys up here now start buying. Buy. They're covering all the shorts all the way down into these sell orders. They are actually buying back at this level. That make sense? Sure hope so. That's capitalism 101. In fact, used to, and maybe I could put this out as a challenge for the YouTube audience, and really all TRIers. My favorite cartoon, and I can still see it in my eyes, and I know I have it somewhere. I've got like literally 20 legal file boxes down in my locker downstairs. I know it's in there somewhere. But my favorite cartoon was this Wall Street fat cat, big top hat on his head. He's got two dancing girls, little flapper girls from the 1920s on either leg. They're drinking champagne, and they're just having the great old time. And the caption right below it says, and then we went after the stops. So this should be a good analogy of then we went after the stops. Kind of like what, there's probably a bunch of stop loss orders in these levels. And that was this candle. And then we went after the stops. Down here, ding, ding, ding. These become market sell orders. They're just dumping, panic, sell, stop loss, get me out, get me out. And, of course, what does the smart money do? They take the market back up following that event. So that's kind of what I'm thinking down the road. I think probably the reason why we're sort of stalling out here a bit, if we go down to the daily chart. Come on, you. Interestingly enough, off of this 52-week range, and I think you should get into the habit of looking at 52-week ranges. It does help quite a bit. So March, interesting. Now we're actually, our 52-week range is this low back up to this high. 50% level sitting 88.65. Honestly, I don't see why that shouldn't be hit. But I think the reason why we sort of stalled out here was 38.2s to the upside here. All these previous lows. Look left. And then we have this massive traffic area, which historically has been a huge battleground on Bitcoin. And I think in years gone by, I used to just simply I don't know what's the best place to do this. Maybe just even off of, well, anyway, we'll just do it off a mountain man level, right? And just say to people, you do realize that what we're doing here is we're just oscillating around this level. And so what ends up happening is, I talk about this in the horizontal support and resistance module with the level twoers, is they'll swing price around these horizontal support and resistance levels. Get the public all bearish and then come back and check and then, same sort of thing. Okay, well, now look at what they did last time, so now I'm going to get bullish. Nope, okay, well, we're loaded up, time to dump it to a new level. And then literally right back to that exact same level, a little bit beyond, a little bit below, a little bit beyond, back check, huge move up, right back to that level. Nice washout FUs, take it away, take it back, take it, whip it down, take it back. So it's like, all they're doing is just washing the market back and forth off this one level. So, in the short term, I thought it was interesting that, we're looking at this range and saying these are reload zones. Off of this entire range, this is actually 38.2, and we say that we can't actually even decide whether this is a bull or a bear for this 52-week range. Like right now, I think this is a bear. We broke to new lows, and now we're just simply asking, is this still a bear? Whoops, there's 38.2 there. So is this still a bear? And if so, we roll over here and head down. Or, and if we can, and really now you can see how we've got a pretty powerful shelf there. If we can accept back above this level, and it's going back, it's a hell of a level here. But just even on the short term, if we can accept back above this level, then it means that really we're establishing now a trading range. And it's pretty wide. I thought it was fascinating too. Remember those off the weekly chart? That was these levels. One of our site vets and damn smart guy. I mean, it's like super duper ridiculous computer genius smart guy. Yeah, I swear some of the people I work with at TRI, man, they are so smart. It's almost. I almost don't even want to open my mouth because whatever I'm going to say is just going to sound stupid. So this gentleman, he, excuse me, I think he did the level 3. I think he did anyway. He's really dug into the Deribit options platform, and he's watched how institutional players are basically putting on a very complicated straddle in the market. In that, and it's interesting the levels, because I think it's a tell. It's way beyond the public's pay grade, and frankly speaking, I was pretty darn impressed that this gentleman could pick it up. I mean, I didn't even see it, but he's watching this data very closely. But what's actually going on in Deribit right now is there's a massive straddle position that some institutional, to the tune of like thousands and thousands of contracts, where and it's complicated to explain. I'm not going to go into the details, but long and short of it here is they are locking in a ceiling at 12,000 through the use of writing, I think, the 12,000 calls, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I can get the details for you, but I don't want to go into the details here. All I just want to simply say is it's really obvious what they're doing. They're straddling the market. 12,000 is the top. It's interesting how I had this crazy-ass, funny little chaos level there at 11,000. Still floating out there. Who knows? Maybe they see that too. But 12,000, they're locking in selling and basically cementing a ceiling on Bitcoin up at 12,000. And yeah, the exact same. And the cool part about this is they can do it absolutely completely free. And then at the exact same time, they're also locking in a floor at 4,000. And same sort of logic. They're doing it basically free of cost. And just tons and tons and tons of contract. It's remarkable to watch how many they're banging through. So clearly somebody is building a massive straddle. And my hunch is I look at this price chart and I go, okay, that makes sense. Because we know halvening, we know past halvening cost of production is 2,500, so now it's going to be 5,000. So is Bitcoin a buy below 4,000? I think so. So if somebody dumps the market hard here, basically this institutional player saying, I'll buy it below 4,000. And I'm more than happy to get filled. Fill me all you want. And if it's like 2,000-3,000, great, that's even better for him. He'll just keep filling the boat. And then at the same time, too, they've also locked in selling prices at 12,000. So excellent application of options information to tell you about market, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the actual trading of Bitcoins and has everything to do with derivatives. So that's another added feature of why it's so important at TRI that we really understand the options market and what's going on there. So with that said, I have very high confidence that this is our trading range. Well, wonderful. 4,000 is your bottom, 12,000 is your top. I think I can make money in between that window. I think I can. I'm not sure. The only problem is right now you can see we're sitting almost exactly midpoint of that. I guess midpoint would be just a tad bit higher, around 8,000. And I wouldn't be surprised if 8,000 being sort of a midpoint between these two levels is where we ultimately settle out. So, we've got that sort of, okay, the daily perspective. And again, I'm really respecting those weekly levels. Now, of course, we've got the big halvening event coming up. So what the hell are we supposed to be thinking about off a sort of, shorter time frame, a little bit shorter window? We are in that higher time frame buying zone. So, dollar cost averagers, okay. I really don't like the look of the way we're yawning over here. We'll say usually these final pushes up here are on like big divergences. Also too, there's that 38.2, there's that mountain man, there is that we affectionately call all these liquidity pools Colin's buddies. We've been talking about a while that's where ultimately we were thinking this thing was going to head up to. And then of course that is 38.2 off of the entire range. I do like the odds of us heading up here one more push into that pre-halvening window. The only problem here is we're running out of time. You know, the pre-halvening window, if we use last cycles as just sort of like not written in stone, but just sort of like a guideline. This here implies that the rally peaks about 20 days prior to the actual halvening. It could be anywhere in this area. But if we follow along that previous cycle, we should look something along these lines here over the next week. But we're running out of time here, folks. It's interesting to see how the market did come off here today, but it seems to be finding a bit of buying pressure. And, you know, the way that they gap the stock market higher, I still like the idea of the market moving higher. If we look at the big three, we haven't really done any technical damage here. I did make reference, and I actually like the idea. Julian did go and hedge a whack of our crypto portfolio through his fun little trading account up on the rally against highs here. I would say if we do lose those highs, we start moving to higher highs, probably best to pull those hedges off. Or if he's starting to get buy signals here on a lower time frame basis. Interesting to see Ethereum did push to new highs here. And Ethereum's got this crazy chaos level floating up top here. Call me crazy, but I still think, you know, 200 SMA on the corn is still a bit higher. I don't know whether we can do crazy chaos thinking way up top here. I mean, maybe, but I'm certainly not, you know, expecting something like that. I'm more expecting, because we are just simply running out of time. I do like a nice little blow off top here over the next week. Maybe we get that, you know, because keep in mind what I think happens here is we get an initial push higher here. Then we get one more higher here, which actually creates a divergence. So as it stands right now, we haven't broken out through this high here yet, so we don't have a divergence here on something like RSI. We do have a MACD div that's pretty well defined here. That's got to be a bit bothersome. And if anything, this is almost going to set up one of our double D's situations here. And actually, it's interesting. I used to work with one gentleman on the site who said, I don't really like to take MACD signals that produce a signal above the zero line. Me, personally, I like this as a confirmed div. I know others don't, but it'll be interesting now if price does go to new highs here. Now we've got sort of the pivot off of the zero line, so if this thing does roll over and break down, then all those guys that go, well, I love it when MACD divs are through zero lines, that's sexalicious. And you kind of notice sort of here, you see the breakdown through the zero line. Right, there to there to there to there to there, boom, there. That was right there. And then, of course, take your first market structure on the other side of the confirmed divergence. There, woohoo, you would have been a happy camper. So, I certainly don't have any confirmed divergence here yet. I've got a sideways market, but I do have this interesting MACD confirmed histogram divergence there. So, I mean, definitely without a shadow of a doubt, I cannot be a buyer here. I just can't. In fact, I was interested earlier on today. I guess it wasn't today. I guess it was last Friday. Off the very lower time frame, but I don't really like talking to you guys on YouTube about like hourly setups. Whoops, didn't want to do that. But I did have a little bullish continuation pattern develop through Friday session. Where the hell is that? One of these charts. Where are you? Charty chart. There it is. So I was looking over on the casino. AB equals CDs, bot setups. It was interesting through ladder yesterday. The market did run up. It hit the move stop to scratch level. So basically just move your stop to break even. If this thing starts petering out here at all, you better hop off. And sure enough, boom, we moved back down to scratch. So in essence, I was politely told, sorry, walk away. He who walks away has go. He who runs away, fights and runs away, lives to fight another day. So I'm not even really interested in anything on the long side right now off of lower time frames, and you can see that this failure actually came in on a bear divergence off the lower time frames. So this has got to clean itself up. You can see it's going through the process of cleaning itself up, start Wing out again. Maybe we can start taking a look at this again. But I don't think it's going to operate off of this. It's going to be more like... Well, we can use the trend line to help us. It's probably going to be something like that. Do we have 33% tag? That came awfully close, eh? Maybe not yet. So, probably very, very early. But it'll be something along these lines. And I'll just simply watch for... Yeah. So my hunch is... we can do... We've broken the downtrend line. It's a very steep one, so I guess that's understandable. Can we start Wing out? This is awfully close there, so it's a bit marginal, but I'd have to start seeing something like this for me to start getting rah-rah bull. So, for the time being, just sort of sitting and watching. I think I've told you guys in the public before, I'm a real sort of location kind of guy. And this is not really the best trade location for someone like myself. I would prefer to be hunting crisp short setups in reload zones or buying crisp setups down in reload zones. Right here, interestingly enough, we used to put on the site. In fact, I think it's in the library. To me, right now, for whatever it's worth, I think that we are in. We used to call this Ray Burchett ping pong levels. Or basically ping pong off of 38.2. So there's 38.2 to the upside. Here's 38.2 to the downside. And really, I'm not quite sure which way we're going to resolve until I see either one of these levels taken out. And considering Happening Event is basically right, this is a 4-hour chart, eh? So, right around there. Could we see one more push up here to set up that sort of pre-Happening Event rally and then dump and then sideways into the Happening? I like that. I mean, I do like that thinking. And of course, what I think is going to happen here is ramp, then ramp, and this move, your momentum indicators are going to be like ramp, ramp, and that will be the sign that I'll be looking for that we're done. Then we get an M over here, and that to me actually sets up a half decent short. So I just gotta hurry up and cool my jets right now. All right, I've been blabbing away here for about an hour and a half, so I think we'll probably wind that up. It gives you an idea of what it is I'm thinking going forward here. Little ones, nothing really to get too excited about there. A lot of bumping back and forth. Where's my little, here we are. Some little funny little poppers. CND took off like a rocket there yesterday. I don't know whether any of you guys got some fills on that. If anything, such a great analogy. You better get those open orders working. Did a little bit of nibbling on this ONT recently. I kind of like the look of that chart over there on Binance. NMR, look at that, surging here relative to Bitcoin. So Nemerite, I think it is, just keeps on going. We're probably going to get close to banging out another double level there. I did notice the Trex account jumped up quite a bit here recently, so something's brewing. All right, so, slow and steady wins the race. Take advantage of these things when they're popping. When they go, they go. Make darn sure to have your open orders working. And like I said, I think we could probably have about a week and a half. Probably happy in front of us. And then I'm worried that at that point, look out. All right, so what do you think about MACD week? MACD week? Is that an event somewhere? Awesome study, Brian. Thank you very much. All right, Andre. Helps a lot. Cool. Yeah, you know what I'd like to see BMX. I think I've talked about this in the public before. What I'd really like to see is Brian organize his charts. No, that's not it. No. There we go. What I really want to see to mark the bottom is I'd really like to see a nice RSI div. Marks the bottom. Marks the bottom. Marks the bottom. No div. So, I don't know where the hell this top is. I got, 3 drives. Mountain Man. I still think 8 Gs is a good level. But, there's no guarantees in this business. I was sort of worried recently, and I had sort of told the community, we got 1M, so that sort of told the bulls to pause. And then the question here is, does this big second M come in? So you can see it's still sort of floating out here. Got a little sloppy W. I don't know whether we can count that or not. That'll be interesting to see. But you can clearly see, if we M out here, that's a second M. There's the little blue, the first one. If this M's out here, holy shit, look out below. I don't think that's going to happen, but, so what? That's Brian's opinion. So it doesn't mean anything. And as I had said earlier, what I'd really actually like to see to know that this is the bottom is I'd actually like to see a nice big fat RSI div here. That would be perfect. And then I'd be like, okay, I think we can all just relax. Okay, well, there you go, guys. I suppose we have still got a few videos here for you, free weekly videos before the big event. Right, we still got 1, 2, I guess 3 weeks to go here. My hunch is maybe by next weekend's video, we're going to see some sort of crazy blow off top here and maybe even be on the other side of it by the time next week's video comes. So let's see what happens. All right, everybody, have yourself a great rest of your day. All the best, and bye for now.